98.9 WGUF. He prefers to fly over the radar. Dave Elliott on 98.9 WGUF. It's 7:20 on the Dave Elliott Show, Wednesday morning. Thank you for being here with us. I also want to say thanks to my good friend Bob Weiner for joining us today, in addition to former White House and Congress senior staff, including Claude Pepper of Florida. He is the National Media Chair and Executive Board Member for USA Masters Track and Field. He's running the marathon in Boston and has a lot of friends who ran this year. And Bob, you must have been as shocked as all the rest of us were, even more so as a runner yourself, when you heard what happened there.
Well, Dave, even your producer who runs triathlons
yes.
is shocked by what happened in Boston. We all feel this no matter what level of the sport we do and what level of any sport we do,
yeah.
because that's one of the most pure and ethereal and natural things we can do to enjoy the world as we exercise and put ourselves out there as part of nature. It's holistic. And they've come right in on us. They've come into our faces. These nuts now. It's a real tragedy. We had a moment of silence at my running group last night because of the Boston victims, and we feel it. They've gone into one of our iconic symbols of our pure human being status. And so, Frank Shorter, who's a friend of mine, the former Olympic gold medalist who was the head of the U.S. anti-doping agency, but I've run in races with him, and he has stayed at Pat's in my house, and I created his job for him. He said at my White House farewell, he spoke at my farewell when I left the White House and said I created his job by getting him on as chairman of the United States Anti-Doping Agency and bringing him in as a delegate for the world bodies when I recommended to McCaffrey and the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they accepted him when he wanted to be involved in the anti-doping issue. And he said on CNN yesterday how we cannot live in fear. We have to allow our pure sportsmanship to continue. Right. And when people run, and tell your producer this too, when he competes in his triathlon, don't think about Boston because it'll just knock you off your stride. And that's what Frank had to do in the 72 Olympics. Was when the attack came in Munich, Frank just days later had to run the marathon, and he said he put it all out of his mind, and that's what we have to do.
I saw that interview yesterday on CNN. It was pretty compelling, right. And they talked a lot about the similarities, and the psychological state that you find yourself in. Let me ask you though about the changes that we may see. Now you talk to high government officials on a daily basis. You interact with many of them. You're friends with many of them. Do you see any federal legislation that's going to come down to require DHS or other people to be in attendance or to have a higher presence at some of these higher profile things like the New York Marathon, the Boston Marathon, the Kentucky Derby, things like that?
Well, what I'm afraid of is paranoia taking away our liberties. And I don't want to see it. I talked to Pat, my wife,
yes.
who you like and know. And,
I love her to death,
we think that's what's going to happen here is that they're going to start chipping away at everything that we love. And there's no reason for that, Dave, because I hate what happened. I think I've expressed and made the case that I hate what happened and what they did to Boston because I've run that marathon. But 3 people were killed, 186 injured, horribly injured. But think of what happens on airplanes, on buses, with murders by guns, with the 30,000 every year. Real crimes that happen constantly and have far more numbers. And yet one nut or one terrorist can change our entire way of life because 3 people are killed.
Well, it's this death by 1,000 cuts, isn't it? It's just a little bit at a time.
Well, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see them succeed at changing our lifestyle, but I hate to say it, but people will now work from fear. The Congress, the right wing especially, will use this to take away more and more of our rights. I want to make sure we protect against that and continue, Dave, to do the priorities in America, which is to fight the diseases, the 40,000 that get breast cancer, like my wife researches, the 40,000 that get breast cancer every year, the 1.6 million that die from all cancers, and the 30,000 that die from gunshots, both crime and suicides, every year. Those are real. The 67% that test positive for illegal drugs when they're arrested, that are flooding our prisons, those are real issues that we have to confront. And to let the terrorists kill a couple of people and change our entire way of life, to me, is more scary than what happened in Boston.
Well, now let's be honest though about Boston. We don't know who the perpetrators were, whether they were domestic, whether they were lone wolf, whether they had any political agenda, or whether they were just, if you'll pardon the expression, mischief makers. What we don't know anything about these people.
Did you just write the president's speech yesterday? That's exactly right.
Well, I didn't hear his speech, but I mean, we don't know.
That's what he said.
We don't know, and I think that it's important to point that out. If it turns out that it's another Adam Lanza kind of thing, then that is one of the prices we pay for being a free society, isn't it?
Well, I don't want to pay that price.
I know, but I mean, it is a price.
I think there's a concrete thing that should happen. There should have been mags at the finish line of Boston when you have the throngs, that's the huge throngs of thousands.
You're talking about magnetometers. Magnetometers, right? Yeah.
And the things we go through, most things now. And so I've run Boston, and it's pretty thin all the way through the race until you get about half a mile from the finish. Then it's this mass of humanity.
Yeah.
That they should have protected. I mean, nobody thought of it. Every marathon now that has that kind of crowd, but there's only 4 or 5 of them, New York, Chicago, Boston, kind of, Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. Yes, you should have some magnetometers at the finish line area so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. That would be a concrete, rational step. But to take it the rest of the way to do who knows what they'll come up with, we don't want everything we do in life to turn into the airlines.
I can't let you go without talking politics for a minute. It's in my DNA, and I know it's firmly embedded in your DNA. Today at 4 o'clock, there's going to be a vote on the gun bill in the Senate, the Manchin-Toomey bill, I guess. And it looks like there could be a filibuster, which might prevent this vote from happening. What is going on with this?
It's tight. It's a 1-by-1 count. It's last I heard
52
it was
to 40
on the filibuster.
Right.
And you got to get to 60. If we get to 60, then the whole thing crumbles for the Republicans, and at least this minuscule marshmallow softy one step that isn't the magazine capacities and isn't the assault bans. Assault bans were 3 of the last 5 mass murders, and the magazines are all of these issues. And
isn't it ironic that certain factors in this argument are saying, well, this bill won't prevent what would have happened. That's because you've lobbied against the measures that would have prevented what happened.
A majority of the American people, and 91% of Americans want what's in this bill. I had Cummings come, who's the House author of the trafficking bill and the universal background checks, and the NRA was lobbying that day to put language in to stop it and soften it, even though they said that they were for it earlier. It's just unbelievable to me, Dave. Unbelievable to me that a lobby of a few elitists who get money for the gun manufacturers, not even the membership of the NRA, because 80% of them want this kind of a bill, can successfully lobby. I don't understand it, other than money in politics is just horrible.
Well, I mean, it is the de facto bedfellow, isn't it? I mean, you talk about strange bedfellows, but money and politics are perfect bedfellows because they've been living together for a long, long time now.
But it's at their own peril. Yeah. That Chicago race, where Bloomberg put money in on the other side and advertised that if you support the gun lobby, you're going to lose this race, and the favorite lost as a result of the counter-advertising. So at least there's an alternate factor now, which is Bloomberg on the other side putting in money for the people, because there are a lot more parents who are concerned about the safety of their kids than there are a few officers of the National Rifle Association.
Finally, I only have a minute left here, but I just got the press release today from Marco Rubio's office just a little while ago touting the new immigration bill, which is the border security, blah, 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 blah. And it's interesting that the first two words are BS, but we'll leave it there for now. I made that point. No, seriously, you know how they all have acronyms when they do these bills? It's called the Border Security, Economic Opportunity, and Immigration Modernization Act of 2013. Are you still there?
Yeah. I am.
Oh,
we
okay.
had a phone issue.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
It's called I'm asleep and dropped it. But
well, it's okay. I've been up a couple hours. No, I don't operate from my home office. Thank you. The funny part about this bill is that if you take a good look at it, the 6 triggers that they put into effect basically guarantee that nothing happens for at least 10 years.
That maybe more, because these people will be so tortured. Jon Stewart made a joke of that last night. That was after he got past saying sympathy to Boston. That was the whole point of his monologue. I think the other thing that I had lunch with a White House staffer yesterday, and he said, Rubio has changed position more times than we can count. So it's hard to know how this will play out, but it looks like that bill could pass because it is so tough on the current batch of immigrants, and it's really.
Well, when you read their summary, the summary is almost punitive. Well, it is. It does have punitive language in it toward the illegals here today. Hey, I have to go.
$2,000, 10 years, end of the line. Have to speak English.
Right.
It's. I don't know what to make of it, other than the fact that this is Torture the Immigrants Act of 2013.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, take care.
You bet. Bob Weiner in D.C. And coming up in just a few minutes, Allison Bradford from Naples on her experience at the Boston Marathon on Monday. Don't go away. We'll be right back.